All right, welcome everybody. I am Nancy Siegel, owner of Solutions for the Workplace, and I am back today with Ellen Steverson of Starting Block Career Services, and we are continuing on our series of unsolved mysteries of the resume and career management. So in this session, we are going to talk about the unsolved mysteries of those sections you should have in your resume. So Ellen, welcome to this session.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm really looking forward to discussing the different sections with everyone today, as I think we are going to debunk some of the old things that are still out there floating around on the internet, and we're going to set people straight today.
All right, that's my favorite thing, setting people straight. Let's start. What I still see on resumes, and I bet you do too. Let's start with the objective.
Right. So as far as, objectives, let's debunk them. They are no longer needed. And I did just recently see, some things going on in the learning world where they're still preaching putting an objective on a resume. And that is so not necessary. It does not help you with keywords for applicant tracking software. And everybody knows your objective. You're trying to get a job. So again, they are no longer needed.
And it doesn't matter whether you are doing a federal resume, which is my area of expertise, or a private sector resume, which is Ellen's area of expertise. As you said, Ellen, your objective is to get the job. And as I like to say, who doesn't want a job where I can grow and contribute to an important organization? I mean, come on, people. No. So what has replaced the objective?
So a couple of things are a little different. As formatting has become in the private sector a little bit more modern with colors and different things like that, we now have what we call a brand line, which typically is right underneath your header section with your name and then your address and all that. The next section starts with a nice brand line. And what I mean by that is if you are, let's just say, a person going into law enforcement and security, right away in a larger font, like a size 14 font, you could have security and law enforcement manager. So right within a second, I see your name and I see what you want, and that's your brand. Okay, in the private sector, I would even say with formatting and the whole thing with keyword optimization for the applicant tracking software, which hopefully we all know now is the software that is used to rank and scan resumes, that you can even use a second line. Now, in the second line, you could very nicely format maybe your top 4 strengths. So you could say like physical security, executive protection, surveillance, or maybe global threat analysis, and nicely done so they know your top key skills. Another strategy might be to have law enforcement leader, but maybe a tagline. So on the second line, instead of just putting keywords, you might want to put something like leading with integrity and modern security operations and training approaches. So again, the reader instantly understands who you are and maybe what your unique value proposition statement is. And then below that, we have a little paragraph typically that's 3 to 5 lines long in the private sector. We don't go beyond 5 lines. And I know that's a little bit different, Nancy, so explain the federal resume.
Okay. So a couple of things are different on the federal side of things. Thing number 1, federal resumes do not go through applicant tracking software.
Correct.
So that is a huge and significant difference between federal and private. A lot of my federal clients think their resumes go through applicant tracking software, but in fact they don't. The only thing that is automated about USA Jobs which is the government process, is the scoring of the occupational questionnaire. That being said, I am a strong believer in having a skills summary or a profile or whatever we want to call it with a paragraph where you are articulating and sharing what you're bringing to the table. So the way I like to describe it is, who are you and what do you bring to the table in the context of the job that you're targeting? And on the federal side of things, because we're not using the fancy formatting that looks so nice on all of your resumes, and I know my resumes do not look so pretty because the feds really don't care. Instead of using larger font, what I recommend is that you use capital letters to call out the keywords or who you are. And I know that a lot of people think capital letters are like screaming, but the USA Jobs Resume Builder does not recognize underline. It will not allow you to use different size fonts. It won't recognize italics. The only kind of formatting that it consistently recognizes is capital letters. So similar in concept, but a little different in execution.
Right. Okay, well, that is very interesting. And I know the federal government doesn't use the ATS, and that most people do think that that USAGov is where it's an ATS, so I'm glad you explained that. But could you also explain, when somebody gets the resume, the federal resume, are they grading it? How do they sort out thousands of resumes?
So the first part of the screening process for government jobs, and the only piece that is automated, is the scoring of the questionnaire. Mm-hmm. And while this is a bit of an oversimplification, anyone that doesn't score 100, their resume never comes out of the system. So very similar to ATS in concept, if the resume itself doesn't score, above a certain point, the resume is not going to get pulled off, printed, and read. Mm-hmm. But once it gets pulled down, real people, human resources folks, actually review by hand every resume that they pull down.
Okay. So formatting's still very important then, because if they don't have the right format on the federal resume, they can rule it out, correct?
Absolutely. And, formatting matters less if you're resume number 2 or number 7 that somebody reads. But the average federal job, depending on occupation and location, can get 400 to 1,000 applications. And you have no way of knowing if your application is number 289 or 742. So I believe that the formatting should make life easy for the human resources people that are reading it.
I would agree with you 100%. And the same is true in the private sector world. I don't think people really realize that in today's world, it really is a global job market. Companies have hired me to help them with, reviewing resumes, and they get resumes from all around America now. People are willing to pay on their own dime and relocate. So it's no longer local or regional or within the state. It is national. So again, when you think about your resume and the material you're putting out there, is it going to be at the same level, the same quality as somebody else? And I think that becomes very important when you start thinking about formatting and stuff. Because again, a bad resume really hurts people.
Absolutely. Now, the opposite is true. People do get hired every day with bad resumes. Mm-hmm. But if I'm reviewing your resume and it's full of typos and I can't find what I'm looking for and I've got to flip pages and all of that kind of stuff, chances are you're done.
Right.
It's over,
That's right.
right?
Well, and you've heard me say before, too, even in the private sector, people get hired every day with what I call a crappy resume. And
That's
what
an
the,
HR technical term.
that's right. That's very technical. But one thing about the private industry that very few people realize, and I guess I know from being an executive recruiter, is that when you put out a crappy resume, yes, they might call you, but you're leaving the hiring manager or the person interviewing you really the fate of your interview in their hands, because the document you sent them doesn't give them any great information to start a conversation. So they ask very poor questions, or very just the common questions. You've given them no launching point to start a great conversation. And what I see happening is those who have crappy resumes typically get offered a much lower salary, because even though the people think their interview went well, and they might have even negotiated up a little bit, it's a total different interview when you have a well-written, really good resume that has accomplishments, results, you understand the complexity of the job you're targeting. Then the conversation's different, and all of a sudden the offers come at the top of the range, the salary range, and then you're able to negotiate maybe on top of that. So I've seen people get, salary increases of 15, 20,000 on the salary range. They'll say 40 to 60 or whatever, and they're getting 60 and above with a good resume. So again, I tell my clients, your resume is not only a marketing document, but it's your financial document. It's going to determine how much money goes in your pocket.
Yes, because that is what is selling your value.
Mm-hmm.
You won't even get in the door with that. So I think we agree in concept, although again, the execution is different between federal and private sector. But what do you see coming next?
So once, again, the branding line and then that qualifying statement, which I just wanted to mention, is like yours. It's, like you mentioned earlier, it must say what the value and your skills and all that. We just only do it up to 5 lines on the private thing. Then after that, if we're just saying a traditional resume, you definitely want to have a professional experience section. Now, applicant tracking software, look for the word professional experience. So sometimes I get resumes, and they might have even been written by somebody else, but they're using these crazy, fun little marketing terms, career history, career trajectory, but at the end of the day, you do want to make sure your resume is written so that the applicant tracking software understands what section it's in. And it's in the professional experience section.
Okay. So I still see resumes with education listed first and not professional experience. What do you think about that?
Education should go up front only in a couple of instances. If you just graduated, and even if you're an older person that's graduated and you're changing industries, whatever you're graduated with is relevant. So you just graduated with a master's in human resources and you don't have a whole lot of human resource experience, then that might trump the reason to put it up front. And any new college grad might want to put it up front. Typically a nurse, somebody in the medical field, they're looking for that immediate, like, do you have a BS, or do you have an associate, are you just certified? So again, in certain fields, they want to see education up front. But the majority of the fields, really your education section should be at the end, because they really want to know what you have done besides your education.
Well, and I would totally agree from the federal side. You are selling your experience. Mm-hmm. You're not selling your education. Correct. And I say that as an HR person, not as a mom. As a mom, I'm very proud of your education. Right. And I understand why applicants are proud of their education as well. But from a hiring manager standpoint, think of it this way. Would you rather hire someone who has done it or only aspired to do it? And the vast majority of hiring managers want someone who's done it. And you are selling your education. And on the you're selling your experience, not your education. And on the federal side of things, 90% of federal jobs do not require a degree. Now, we can
Wow.
argue whether that's good or bad,
Right.
conceptually. But you can be an accountant for the federal government and not have a degree in accounting.
But they do make sure they're highly qualified and have usually the experience. So
Experience. That's what
we
it's
could do a
about.
whole podcast on the college education versus work experience, and there's lots of feelings and mixed feelings on that. And, in reality, the last time I looked it up, in the U.S., only 35% of the people are still getting college degrees. So when people think everybody has a college degree, that is just not the case. So you have to know when to show it and highlight it and when to highlight your experience, because experience trumps education.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about experience.
So
I have 40 years of experience. Do you want to see my whole life history on my resume?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now you need to calm that down and get it wrapped up in 10 years or less. No, typically it's 10 years. We like to see 10 years on a resume. And if you have something in the past that's very relevant, and I think you said it earlier very well, Nancy, we're proud of certain things in our lives. So a lot of times I have to tell clients, I get that you're proud of this project or whatever they did, but is it relevant to the next employer? And if the answer is no, you don't waste space on a resume talking about it. Even though it excites you and you're proud of it, you just don't need to add that. Okay? So you want to make sure that it's 10 years of relevant experience. If it is something that's, say in a law enforcement case, maybe they were a police officer or they were part of the Secret Service prior to private security, then I would do an earlier career section, add only the relevant information, and maybe even omit the to and from date of when you worked, and maybe just put 5 years so that they know you were a police officer for 5 years. But when you start putting dates like 1984 to, 1989, you're just dating yourself.
Well, and most of the people reading your resume were not born then or barely born.
Right.
I explain it to clients like this. You don't want to be that guy who is still talking about his high school football touchdown and he's 60.
Right.
Dude, get over yourself. Have you not done something more important or impressive since then? I, too, agree with the whole 10-year thing. Sometimes it's 12, sometimes it's 8,
Right.
etc. And, sometimes in a profile, I'll say more than 20 years of experience, blah, blah, blah. And clients come back, it's 28 and a half. Well, that's still more than 20, right?
Yeah.
Let it go.
Right.
While age is not an issue as much in the federal government, because the federal government trends older than the private sector significantly. It's about 15 years older than the private sector on balance. The private sector, of course, even though it's illegal, there is age discrimination out there. So that's one thing. And on the federal side specifically, if you're talking about something 10, 12, 15 plus years ago, every federal job posting talks about 1 year of specialized experience at the next lower grade. And 10 or 15 years ago, you were probably at a much lower level than you are now, and that experience won't count anyway. It's not about your journey. You should have already arrived.
Right. And I agree with you. And a lot of times, I get the same kind of pushback. They're like, I've been working for 20 plus years, Ellen. And I'm like, correct, but you haven't been an executive for 20 years. You built your career. And as an executive, you've only been an executive for the last 12 years. So let's focus on, since you're going for another executive, CEO role or whatever, you need to focus on just that. They know you got there because you have the experience. Or, if you're at a VP level, now you want a CEO level, again, what are you doing to get there? They don't need to know how you got up the ladder. They need to know what you've been doing to show that you can handle the next rung on the ladder.
Okay. So we've talked about how far to go back. What else do you want to see in someone's work history or description?
So I believe that you should have a little bit of a, again, just 3 to 5 lines of a quick description. And in this description, I do want to see, like, if you manage people, how many people? If you manage a budget and execute a budget, how big of a budget? Because there's a difference between somebody doing a $100 budget and somebody doing an $8.9 million budget. So those type of things I want to see in the 3 to 5 lines. And then, as always, I like to see bullets that start with results. So again, everybody starts their bullets like a task instead of giving the result. And then if you need to say, increase sales 33% by doing X, Y, Z, that's great. And you get keywords in and all that.
Responsible for sales.
Exactly. Yeah. Or generating leads, prospecting, cold calling. And then all of a sudden on the second line, all the way at the bottom, far right, is increased 33%. The human eye doesn't read like that. With Twitter and texting and things like that, we don't read full long lines anymore. It's kind of a quick breeze. And then when they see something that catches their attention, they go, ooh, I need to read this full sentence. So it's not that they won't read a full sentence or they won't read a paragraph, which I hear lots of people saying. I just heard somebody the other day giving poor advice about putting all these bullets on a resume. Again, I call those the polka dotted ponies. You don't want to have you don't want to have excessive amount of bullets on your resume either. Break them up visually, maybe subcategorize them. But action, results, and make it visually appealing. Typically, the rule of thumb is you want to have 5 to 6 strong bullets, or maybe 4 to 6 strong bullets per job. And if you really have 3 to 4 jobs on a resume, on a 2-page resume, that's all you can fit anyway.
Right. So let me take that from the federal perspective, which is different.
Right.
And an underlying premise of a federal resume is that if it is not overtly stated on your resume, you did not do it. So it is critically important for federal resumes to have a lot of detail. While a private sector resume is 1 or 2 pages, a federal resume is typically 4 to 6.
Right.
And requires a lot of detail and, of course, all of the key words from the job posting. So I totally agree with you about metrics, because to me those numbers give your work context. How many times a year did you do that? What's the dollar value? How many people? Numbers are critical to give your work context. And accomplishments show you have value. When I just see a list of duties, and I see them a lot, it's like saying to someone, I do this, I do that, I do the other thing. Trust me, I do it well. I'm not going to trust you. I don't even know you.
Right.
And so your resume really needs to communicate your value. What differentiates you from the people who sit on the other side of your cubicle wall that do exactly the same thing? So again, same point for private and federal, but the execution of it, the level of detail that's required for a federal resume is significantly more than what's required for a private sector one. I could be Bill Gates, and if I submitted a 1 or 2 page resume for an IT job, I'm not going to get past the screen, because federal HR people are not allowed to make assumptions or draw conclusions about what you've done based on your title or anything else. You need to explicitly tell them.
Correct. And I will, at this point, and I think we might have mentioned it in the first podcast, I want to debunk the value of a one-page resume. I see a value of a one-page resume only in two scenarios. One, you just graduated college and you really don't have much to put on there. But even my new grads, if they're involved and they have projects, I make a two-page resume, and I'll tell you why in a minute. The second reason I would use a one-page resume is what I call a networking resume. If you're going to network into the community, and these can be a little bit more graphically enhanced, kind of give little snippets, that would be okay. However, if people studied like I do and, about applicant tracking software, the truth of the matter is applicant tracking softwares need about 850 to 1,000 words to rank you up higher. So it goes without saying that if you have a flimsy first one-page resume, you're not going to rank higher than somebody who has two full pages. So again, agree, it's not like a federal resume where you have to put everything in there, but you do have to have keywords. You do have to have sometimes repetition. If you did customer service at multiple jobs and that's a keyword, you want to make sure you get customer service multiple times in the experience section.
And if you're going to go to 2 pages, please don't just dribble on I call it dribbling on that second page where you have 5 or 6 lines. It's like you couldn't discipline yourself enough to edit you down to 1, or you couldn't fill up a second page.
Right.
So,
and even, not to interrupt you, but, that's a very good point, Nancy. And even, when people say, well, I don't read past the first page, well, that's typically because they're reading, to be quite frank, a crappy resume, and there's no value to turn the page. So if you write and I've talked to hundreds and hundreds and probably thousands of hiring managers, and I've said to them, if you've got a resume that's really good and it shows value, do you flip to page 2? And they're like, heck yeah. So again, I've never had somebody say, no, I'd rather get a 1 page, ever. So again, you make your resume 2 full pages, because Nancy's absolutely right. I don't want to see something half empty. And if you've got the second page half empty, I'm thinking, what, he didn't do enough to get 2 full pages? You want them 2 full pages, keyword rich. And again, bullets are full sentences, so please add a period at the end of it.
oh, details.
Yes.
Details. So on the federal side, because these resumes are 4 to 6 pages, and please, the worst I've ever seen on a federal resume, and this is a true story, was 67 pages.
Oh,
No, but wait, there's more. It had footnotes. No footnotes.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I've seen multiple resumes with footnotes. I don't know. Well, let's just no. It does not require any further discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do know that there is tension in the federal arena because I believe you're writing for the HR people, because you have to get to the hiring manager, and you cannot get to the hiring manager if you can't get past HR. So you need that level of detail. I do know that hiring managers oftentimes do not want to see, 6 pages or read 6 pages. So that goes back to needing to sell them at hello. I know there's that tension, and people come to me and they say, oh, my supervisor doesn't want more than 2 pages. And I'm like, your supervisor will never see the resume if it doesn't get past the HR people. And I have had countless clients that say, I'm doing the job and I didn't get past HR. That's because they did not provide enough detail.
And I would argue that on the federal resume, which I've seen many, is another reason why their bullets really need to stand out then. So if it gets through the HR person and it's 6 pages long and the HR guy doesn't have time to read 6 full pages, he's going to naturally look for a few bullets.
Right.
And when he looks for those bullets and he sees it something like, save $2.5 million doing XYZ, that will spark his interest. Whereas if your bullets are just as lame and just a very responsible for, or they read like a job posting, he's not going to get excited. He will throw you to the side because, again, humans want to hire somebody that can make their lives easier or hit the goal or whatever. So, again, these bullets do become very important in the experience section, I think, for both sides, federal and private.
And before we move on, I just have to say something about responsible for. That is a personal peccadillo of mine.
Yep.
Just because you're responsible for something doesn't mean you did it. It only means you should have done it.
Absolutely.
So please banish that.
That's right.
Again, I like to use capital letters to emphasize things, so a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about education. If I have an associate's degree or multiple associate's degrees, do I need all of those on my resume if I have a bachelor's degree as well?
So no, you do not need to add associate's degrees if you have a bachelor's degree because that's implied. You would have had to have some formal education to get to the bachelor's degree. However, if you have an associate's degree that is relevant to the job, so say I have a Bachelor of Science in Management, but my associate degree is in computer science and I'm an IT professional. Therefore, I can see that he got his computer skills and his IT knowledge on the associate path, and then he went to the management because now he manages teams of people and he wants to be in management. So again, if there is a technical part to the associate or something relevant, you need to add that. Otherwise, you can omit it.
Right. I see a ton of associate of liberal arts, and I'm like, you have graduate degrees. Who cares? Plus, they take up space.
Well, and I'll make the argument for the other side. I've had clients that in the private sector where we've removed their PhD because they have tried to get jobs and cannot. But again, if you've spent your entire world in academia and you've never really worked in the business world, again, it kind of falls under that, saying that some people sadly think, oh, well, if you were teaching, you weren't doing. And, by removing that PhD and removing the whole going by the word doctor and all that makes them more approachable, doesn't make, because the person that they might report to might not even have a master's or a PhD. So again, you have to be strategic throughout your career of what you're trying to market and sell.
It's all about being strategic.
That's
and
right.
Because degrees are not required for the vast majority of federal jobs. Calling yourself doctor when you're a PhD, I'm sorry, it sends a message that a lot of people don't want to hear.
Right. I agree with you. But that does bring up, other sections of the resume. So let's move on to talk about just other sections like military, publications. Oh, the one that my favorite is hobbies.
Don't care.
Yeah, that's right. So let's debunk that myth. Again, unless there is a absolute tie that you've been freelancing photography for 10 years and you're a graphic designer and you want them to know you're a photographer as well, maybe, but even then I could say you could probably wrap that into the experience section better than just having it under hobbies. So again, hobbies are not relevant.
You don't want to know that I hike?
No, I don't want to know that you hike. However, I will say, though, the military, it's okay to have a short little military section, even if you've been out for 20 years. But if it's if you were in the military and you manage 200 people and the role you're going for right now requires more than managing 50 people, and in your private world you haven't managed more than 50, then you do need to add that section. So again, it's bringing in that earlier experience to show a skill set.
And being strategic.
Correct. Absolutely. And to be quite honest, that is probably the number one reason why, we're doing these podcasts educationally, but really that is the number one advantage of working with professionals like us, Nancy, is we're helping people be strategic. We're helping them understand what to put on, what to add. And then the benefit is we write it maybe, but at the end of the day, it's that helping them get clarity and understanding how to sell their career. That's a real advantage, in my opinion.
And they are selling their career and their experience.
Right. Now, what about references? Do we put references
before we
on
leave
it?
military,
Okay.
One other thing I want to say. Only 1% of this country is currently active duty, and only 3% of the people in this country know someone who was in the military.
Mm-hmm.
So I work with a lot of transitioning military members. I know you do as well. I think it's really critical for folks to translate their military experience, because the vast majority of people do not know the difference between a corporal and a captain.
Correct.
And the vast majority of people do not care what ship you were on or whether it was the 72nd or the 132nd, anything. It does not matter. Those are distinctions without differences.
Then that would even be a podcast in itself, because, again, I agree with you 100%, and I have to really tell my military, and when you're using the word like soldier, guns, wartime, things like that, your resume paints a picture. If you want to be seen as a businessman or a logistics operator or whatever, you need to paint that picture and use terms that somebody who's unfamiliar with the military,
and maybe even a little scared of it.
Right, and scared of it, you need to then go ahead and paint a picture of, like, I've written resumes for military people who have manufacturing plants on the base. Who knew? Manufacturing is going on in our United States. That's right, you know. But most people don't. So again, if they're applying for a manufacturing job, how about you put on the resume that you were at Fort whatever, and you had a manufacturing plant making XYZ that had so many employees, and you did XYZ. So you have to write it and relate it so that the human reader can understand it and get the keywords in.
Right. Now, you mentioned that you could get a 2-page resume for a student. How do you do that?
So when I write a resume for a student, like let's say they have been working at the help desk at the college, so that then becomes a job, so that goes on there. But what if they also took multiple courses with big projects on it? And I'm not talking like I wrote a thesis. Okay, I'm talking about projects where they had to do business case studies. They maybe met with external stakeholders or businesses in the community. And I've had college students work for me as an intern, or as well as they've done case studies on my solo entrepreneur business. So these are then the things that you make a project section and break them down just like a real job, give them bullets like a real job so that they'll scan in the ATS. And my clients get great results with those resumes. I even had a girl, quick story, she was getting on a bus for a career fair up in New York City. The school was in Tennessee, taking them to New York. It was the fashion industry and all that. And her professor yelled and screamed at her in front of everybody because she brought a 2-page resume and everybody else had the academic font 1 page. And she called me from the bus, very upset and embarrassed, of course. And I had to reassure her, yours will stand out. Well, sure enough, she was the only one who could get back on the bus, who had, I think, 6 or 7 interviews at the career fair, and probably the first one to land an offer. So again, just because somebody's telling you you have to have a one-page resume, which is great if it's part of the school function and they want that for a book or something, but in this case, they were allowed to bring whatever resume they wanted, and she brought what she wanted, and it served her well.
Good, good. And I can even get 4 pages for a student for a federal one.
Right,
by
exactly.
using projects, by detailing part-time work experience, all of that sort of thing that most folks don't think about.
Exactly.
All right, final section of a resume, or shall I say non-section, and that is references. I still see references available upon request.
Mm-hmm. Or they list the references on their resume. And
Yeah.
I would not be happy about my name, my cell phone number, and my email going out to God only knows where. So again, the reference, it's a myth that you have to put them on the resume. They don't want them on the resume. Now, there are going to be cases where maybe sometimes schools will require you to send 3 references ahead of time. Put them on a different piece of paper. And they usually do say send a reference sheet, or they'll have their own forms. So again, everything we talk about depends on what the employers are asking for, but never put references. Why waste valuable real estate on your resume with reference information?
And the same thing is true for federal positions. Unless the job posting actually requires references, leave them off.
Correct.
And I do know that the USA Jobs Resume Builder has a section for references, but please know that that is not a required section, and do not fill it in.
But on the same breath, again, it is valuable to understand you should have 3 to 5 references when you start job searching. So if you're updating your resume, you should be thinking, well, then who would be my references? And you should be contacting them and staying in touch with them, not all the time, but you should let, a professor, I'm getting ready to do my job search. These are the type of jobs I'm going to apply for. Would you mind being my reference? And then adding them. If you haven't talked to them in 90 days, shoot them another email to remind them you're still looking, or that you just landed an offer and they're going to be checking your references. Please be available. So again, you do want to keep up with these references, let them know where you are in the pipeline, because out of sight is out of mind. So you do want to, inform them. And I've had people give me as references, and then I get these phone calls and I'm like, what? Who? You don't want the conversation to start like that. Prepare them for the call.
And give them a copy of your new debunked myth resume.
Absolutely. Give them that great resume so they can see exactly the skill set you're selling, especially if you worked with them at an old job, so they know exactly what to talk about. The worst thing you want to happen is, somebody's going on and on about how great you are, but it's so great because you tell jokes at the water cooler, You want them to talk about the project that you actually did and saved $2 million,
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we have, again, covered a lot of ground and debunked a bunch of mysteries.
I agree.
Please join us the next time when we talk about aligning your resume and keywords from your job postings. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Nancy. Bye-bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please visit Nancy or Ellen's website. Nancy's website is www.solutions-workplace.com, or Ellen's website is www.getyouemployed.com. For additional information about our services, a free tip sheet which highlights our discussion today, and be sure to tune in to our next podcast, which will be posted soon. Thank you.